Welcome everyone to yet another Ask the Experts session. Just to kind of give a bit of a recap on what these series and sessions are about. These are about really going beyond the documentation. One thing as a customer and when I worked on the partner side is that I was really just kind of wanting to see more than the documentation, wanting to see more than just now create material. And so the Ask the Experts series really is your avenue for going beyond the documentation, learning really those challenges, pain points, trials and tribulations, those things that make you bang your head on the keyboard. That's where this session and our experts that present cover. So my name is Allen Andreas. I'm a senior developer advocate here at ServiceNow, and I'm your host for the Ask the Expert series. I'm also a certified master architect. I've been in the ecosystem for over a decade now at this point. And yeah, I'm just a passionate knowledge sharer. I've been a ServiceNow MVP for the past 6 years. And so that's really a bit about me. Just to recap on the session series, the format, right? So these are roughly going to be about 35 to 40 minutes in length of content presented. Then we'll have a period of Q&A. You could also have asked questions prior to this session. You can also ask questions after the session. So we'll be able to open up the Q&A. So use the Q&A function in the Zoom if you're on the actual live session, or in the comments of the video down below if you want to ask it later. But these are live recordings, and we will have these posted within about 24 to 48 hours on our ServiceNow YouTube channel. And these sessions will start occurring every 2 to 3 weeks. The last thing I want to cover before we get into our material is just our safe harbor notice here. So this is just to say that if for some reason, somehow, we mention anything that's forward-looking about the ServiceNow platform in the Zurich release or 2026 or 2027, please do not make your ServiceNow purchasing decision based on what we're saying, as it may or may not happen and actually be in the release at that time. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and now turn it over to our amazing ServiceNow MVP speaker, Wessel, who will talk about today's session. So Wessel, thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, thanks, Alan. Again, everybody, thank you for joining today, as we have quite an interesting session today. We're going to talk about employee journey management, which is a pretty hot topic nowadays. But before dive into that, let me introduce myself quickly. So my name is Wessel van Enk. I'm based in the Netherlands, and I'm a software engineer for KLM, the airline for people that know it. I'm an MVP in 2025, and last year I was also a rising star. But I've been working with ServiceNow for the past 10 years, and the last 5 years mostly on HR service delivery, which is of course something we're going to dive in today. So what is the goal of this webinar? We're going to try to help you understand today how employee journeys can increase your company's employee experience. It's something that a lot of people struggle with, a lot of companies struggle with. So we're just going to try to help you get going. So like I mentioned, our agenda for today, we're going to talk quickly about what is the employee experience, what is it today, and what are the expectations. What are employee journeys actually about? What is it? Lifecycle events, part of HR service delivery, and part of the employee journey. We're going to do a demo, and we're going to share some lessons learned. And of course, afterwards, like Alan mentioned, we're going to have some time for Q&A. So you're going to see some percentages now on your screen. And the first two are pretty high. At least if it's above 50%, something can be or very good or can be very wrong. So let's dive into these percentages. What employee engagement, what it is, how do you improve it? So we see that 85% today of decision makers agree that an improved employee experience translates to a better customer experience. So we see that a lot of companies struggle with this. There's a lot of scattered employee experience going from onboarding to offboarding and everything in between. We will cover some of the scenarios. But if you have a bad experience at some point within a company based on a process that doesn't run very smoothly, it will stick with you, regardless of what happens afterwards. So it's something that a lot of companies want to improve as well. 60% of company leaders as well see employee engagement and motivation as the top 5 challenges nowadays. Especially after COVID happened, of course, a lot of people are working in hybrid mode, or working in different locations, maybe even work across the globe from where you have your office. So it's something that is really different compared to what used to be, which are a lot of things are different than what it used to be. But on the other side, it's also interesting if I look at my current employer, which is an airline, which already had some of these challenges even before COVID, because more than 50% of our employees don't even work in an office, they work in an airplane. So they are never in an office. So it's a continuous challenge that also these companies are facing, and there's loads more. And also 23% really think that higher profits do relate to higher engaged employees. If your employees are engaged, they want to do more for your company. And otherwise they think, wow, why would I do so much effort for you if you don't put the effort in me? So just to get you started, Alan, let's start with the first poll. How many employees do you think say that they are unhappy at work? It is 70%. So 70% of the individuals say that they are unhappy at work, which is weird if you think about it, because it's pretty high. That means that most of us are unhappy at work. If you look at your colleague group, that at least some of them are not happy on what they're doing at their current employer. But also 8% of the leaders know that their employees are not happy, which is pretty low compared to the 70%. So I still think that a lot of leaders are unaware that people are unhappy at their job. So maybe we need to discuss this even more with our managers. 52% of all employees say that they have plans to leave their current company within a year, which is not good from a company perspective. Of course, you don't want to lose your employees. Um, and what do you need to do to retain them, and maybe improve their experience if it isn't good? Also, 78% of people don't think their workload is flexible enough to balance personal and family life. It's a thing that really matters today a lot more than, I don't know, 20, 30 years ago. And especially with the new generation incoming, we see that this balance is so important, and companies really need to adapt. So we see that previously a lot of companies were just pushing whatever they wanted towards their employees, but it's really a shift nowadays. Nowadays, companies need to adapt based on what their employees want, and not only what they think or what they want. And a lot of companies are still struggling to how do we organize that. And also 68% of people do not know what they are expected to do at work, which is crazy, because if I look into my office and I go around to my colleagues, I think that most of them do know what they need to do and what is expected. But if you don't know what is expected for you at work, then what are you doing there? So yeah, do you know exactly what you're expected of doing at your office? Pretty interesting stuff. All right. Um, I use this quote quite a lot. If some of you have seen my presentations before, at no other time in history have we had this much opportunity to reinvent work and make it stick. Like I mentioned, COVID was a big thing in this, but of course there's other things that are happening. A lot of people are accepted or take a job that is not in their hometown or even in their own country. They work remotely, and it just really changed the way how companies are set up. Like I mentioned, not everybody goes to the office anymore, and even if you go to the office, not a lot of people go to the office 5 days a week anymore. They just go 2 or 3 days a week, and most of them work from home the other days. Um, so that's something that needs to change, especially if you have issues with some of your devices and you're not in the office. You can't expect people go to the office again, have it fixed and go back home. So it's something that needs to change. Um, and that's also if we look at the current state of the employee experience with a lot of companies. On the left side, you see the current experience that a lot of people are facing today. There are so many different applications, so many different pages you need to go to. If I need to request my parental leave of absence, I go to my intranet, I search in my knowledge base, I find an article, and there are 2 or 3 links in there that just sends me to 2 other applications, one with some more information, and another one where I need to fill in some form, which is old school, old dated. It just looks like it's been created in the 80s. So it's just not up to date anymore. And that's not what people want and not what people expect, because what people expect, if you look on the right side, is that we have one single place where we can do all of that, have our employee journeys, but also have the consolidated task, have your enterprise services, so combine departments into a single platform. And that's also something that we do with the ServiceNow platform, of course, because yeah, why would you care how things work and how departments need to fill in some forms and have their information? That's not up to you. You just need to fill in your information. You need to request whatever you want to request, and what happens after that should not be your concern. That's up to the departments, but not up to you. So, what is an employee journey? Going into the topic of today, it's the complete experience that an employee has within an organization. Key stages, touch points that shape your experience. And like I say here, there are some key examples. Onboarding, of course, is a very, very big topic because and it's mentioned a lot, and it's of course not the only example, but the reason why it's mentioned a lot is because it's your first touch point within a company. If you have a bad experience during your onboarding, it will stay with you regardless how long you're going to stay with the company, because it's the first thing, your first meet with the company. It's the same thing if you meet somebody in person. The first impression stays with you, regardless is it positive or negative. It stays with you. Same for onboarding, but it's also the same thing with offboarding. Of at some point, if you agreed that you want to leave, you want to do this in a nice way that it's working. You need to just hand in your stuff at some point, and everything is taken care of in the systems and all the people administration that needs to happen. But also if you're on parental leave, because you have other things that you need to think about. I recently came back from my parental leave, and I can tell you there was not a minute that I thought about work during my 4 weeks of parental leave. And I just wanted to know that everything was taken care of before I went on leave, and it worked. Because it should not be my problem, and especially not during my leave, if something goes wrong. And it really helps if that's all taken care of. Because if you have to follow up during your leave, that's something you really don't want to do. So let's take an example. And I mentioned onboarding, but of course there are many other examples, but onboarding is a big one, because it goes from your pre-boarding all the way to your first day at the company. So you receive and sign your offer letter. You're given some information. What can you expect? You have some employees that you want to stay in touch with. You can already connect with your manager. You can connect with peers. Maybe you even have a buddy within your employee, and you want to connect with them. And well, that's all part of your pre-boarding, and is part as well of your journey. Your journey already started. And this is something that we want to automate and include during our process and employee journey within the ServiceNow platform. I want to receive a welcome pack. I'm given information and learning experience, which for most people is the same thing, so it's repetitive for everybody that joins the company. So why not automate it? Why would people every time have to send an email or send you a link with something that you need to do, or where you can find some information? It can be automated, and it's pretty easy. So I'm going to show that to you later. But also during my onboarding experience, I want to tell the company how it makes me feel and how I feel. So I want to send out surveys at different parts of the process, in the beginning, in the middle, at the end. And I just want to see if the experience improves, if something goes wrong afterwards, or at some point there are things that we can improve, because you cannot build something that is perfectly from the beginning. You also want to learn from this. But if you don't ask the employees what can be improved, you most likely won't improve it, and it will stay as is. So how can lifecycle events relate to your employee journey? Well, lifecycle events is something within the ServiceNow platform that is built to automate these kind of employee journey processes. It's not only for HR, although it is within the HR service delivery scope, but it's not only related to HR, because for most of these processes, it's not only HR that needs to take action. It's HR, IT, procurement, finance. There are so many different departments that are involved during these processes and need to take some kind of action. And you really don't want to wait until HR sends an email to IT or to procurement. Hey, can you please add this and this people to the system? Or can you please prepare a laptop for this and this people? He's going to start next week. No, you want that to have that automated. Also, because most of these things are forgotten, and then at some point the person shows up on their first day and the laptop isn't ready. So that's also a bad impression, right? So lifecycle events are the building blocks for your employee journey. So they're there to automate repetitive tasks, to ensure consistency, to improve the employee experience, and to provide visibility as well into the progress. With lifecycle events, you can actually see at several stages in the process who is responsible for a certain part of it. And if somebody doesn't fulfill their task, you can just go to them or send them a message like, hey, Alan, I see there's a task that you still need to perform. Our process is currently waiting for you to perform that task before we can continue. Can you please have a look at it? And then Alan can say, oh, yeah, sure, I completely forgot about it. Thanks for the reminder. But if you don't have that visibility, the task may be there with Alan for weeks. And then at some point, yeah, all things go wrong. So it really helps to give you that visibility. So are we ready for an actual demo of this? Let me see where
And
my
that's what we're super pumped about as Wessel is pulling that up. This is what I'm talking about when we have a differentiator between these types of sessions and these types of caliber speakers versus other things, is that we bring the heat here. We're bringing good stuff here. So Wessel has been very kind to pull up his company's instance here to actually walk through this material. So if you've been kind of tuned out a little bit earlier from all the text on the screen, this would be when you want to definitely pay more attention here, because we've got actual demo from an instance, a real customer instance. So
Yeah, I tried not to make it too boring with all the kind of text. So let's see if this works. All right. So if we log into Employee Center, of course we see our welcome screen that most of you will know that work with ServiceNow. And on the right upper side in our header, we see there is a tab called Journeys. Of course, we can have this as a separate catalog item as well within our taxonomy or our catalog. But there's an actual section that is added on Employee Center specific for journeys to make it easy accessible for managers or whoever within your company is going to request these kind of services. So if I click on journeys, I get a welcome page where I also get an overview of how many of my team members are currently on career growth journeys, for example. How many of my team members are currently still within an onboarding journey, and how many total journeys I have created so far. If I have created one that is currently still active, I can also follow up on them in the screen below. But let's go and create a new journey. I already talked about onboarding too much, so I'm gonna take parental leave just as an example. And it's just going to ask you some basic questions that needs to be, that's the data that needs to uh, drive the journey itself. So I need to fill in, when do you think you want to start your leave? I think I will start on the 1st of July. And when do you think you end your leave? At least within the Netherlands, you get, well, you get 6 weeks, but let's make it 4 for now. When is your child's estimated due date or adoption date? Well, let's say, well, it's the 1st of July, so the expectation is the 4th of July. If I'm the one that is pregnant, well, in this case, it isn't. My co-parent is pregnant. I'm becoming an adoptive parent. I'm becoming a surrogate or a foster parent. All these kind of scenarios are possible. And based on these different answers, you can change the process, because it might be that you need different information based on what is going to happen. Because if my wife would fill this in and she's the one that is pregnant, she might need to uh, give some more information that I would have to as a co-parent. But for now, I'm the co-parent. How would you like to get in? How do you prefer we get in touch with you? You can email me, you can call me, you can chat with me, contact me in person. Might be a little bit difficult during this phase of my life. But let's say, okay, it's easier for me to check my emails, especially if you wake up 2, 3 times a night. You can quickly maybe check your email in between. And you can add something else if there's anything that you think is necessary to mention here. So some pretty basic data. And when I press submit, it's going to start and create the case for my parental leave of absence. And it's going to start the automation process that is behind it automatically. So that's why it's taking a few seconds, because there are some automated tasks that are directly going to be triggered. As you can see here, there is a parental leave of absence journey created for me. So the journey is for me. I get an overview, and I can directly see that there are 9 tasks already being triggered, and 7 of those are assigned to me. I need to notify my manager. I need to submit my certification document. I need to tell my manager. Well, basically, that's the same thing. Um, but you can also see in different activities in the future, there will be tasks for me that are upcoming. So on the left side in the stages, you can see the various stages of the entire process from start to finish. And I can already see that in the next stage, there will be a survey, tell us how we're doing. There will be another survey at the end, tell us about your experience. So like I mentioned, different touch points within the process, just get a quick feeling on how these people are doing. Confirm that your kid has been born, etc., etc. So there's various stages in the process that you can define. If we look at the lifecycle event that is behind this, so this is the lifecycle event on the back end of the ServiceNow platform, where you configure the lifecycle event itself. So we see here that it's the parental leave of absence case. And within the activity sets, I can see here the entire process, including all the different tasks and activities that need to be performed in each stage. So I see the first 2 stages are, well, pretty busy. There's a lot of things that need to happen here. I can also see that there are some automated notifications that are going to be sent out. I can see here that HR has some task, and there are some tasks for the employee to fulfill. Later on, it just continues in all the different stages that you have. But like I mentioned, it can also be activities that are not only for HR, but it can be that IT also needs to do something. They need to, I don't know, based on your company policies, disable the accounts during your parental leave. Some companies have that kind of policy. So it might be that when you're on leave or planning on leaving, pre-leave, confirm the leave start, that there's a task for IT to, hey, temporarily disable the accounts of this employee because, well, they shouldn't have access to the systems during their leave, for example.
And Wessel, just to kind of recap for those, like the DNA of a journey would consist of like life cycle events or this other thing we may have not talked about, like a journey accelerator. Those two things kind of merge into and become a journey. Is that correct?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So this is the technical part of it, let's say. So this is where you define the process and the activities that are needed within the process. It's pretty low code, so it's pretty easy to build these kind of things. If I would click on add an activity, I just get a simple pop-up screen where I can define a lot of different things. Let's see. Yeah, there it is. So I have different types. I can do an approval if that is needed. I have a task for the employee, for a fulfiller, so for HR, for finance, or any other department. I want to send an automated notification, but I can also include a flow that is already there. So let's say we have an offboarding process and IT already has a full flow with all the automated steps that need to happen to disable all the accounts. I can incorporate all of that within my lifecycle event. So there's no need to rebuild all that kind of stuff because if it's already there, use it. It's wasted time to not do that. Um, and as a journey designer, like Ellen mentioned, there's a whole designer where you can define these journeys. The lifecycle events itself are just the technical parts, the process itself, all the things that are needed. The lifecycle event is one part, but you can have the journey accelerator, a personalized message. You can add quick links to it, recommended learning if that is needed along the way. Um, so in the journey configurations, I see here all the journeys that currently I have defined so far. But from here, I can also easily just create a new journey. And the journey is pretty straightforward. I need to give it a name, of course. And I need to say, okay, what is the source of this journey? Is it a lifecycle event? So do I already have built a lifecycle event with the process behind it? Is it only a journey accelerator or is it a combination of both? Depending on which one I select, of course, I need to link it. I need to select the lifecycle event that I have created. And based on it, you get a lot of different options and questions. Um, I also have an option here, which is pretty handy to update it if my manager changes. So if I have a crossboarding, for example, and on the day that I start with my new role, my manager might change in the system. So if ServiceNow notices that and it gets from your HR core platform that you have a new manager, if this checkbox is checked, it will update the manager field as well within the process. Because by default, it takes the manager you have when you start the journey. But if you selected this, it will update it if your manager changes along the way. Well, you can have some details here. You can also add mentors. You can allow them if you want to for certain processes, mentors, buddies. There's different terms for people that are used within companies. So you can do all that and then add the lifecycle event, so the process itself behind it. Um,
And one thing there, Wessel, so we have a
yeah,
question just because you're like right in the moment talking about it. This is about if we have an onboarding lifecycle event set up to trigger based on a hire date, like it's an integration with like an HRS system or something like that. If
yeah.
they move lifecycle events into a journey, can they safely assume that the journey would be automatically started? So the trigger condition is that defined on the journey? Is that defined from the life cycle event? And how do they kind of double check that?
It's defined in the lifecycle event. So that's the trigger in the process. So you see here that the trigger you can sorry, that's no. The trigger immediate, but I can also change this and saying the trigger is well, it's not loading. The trigger is from the HR profile table. It's the start date, and if the start date is today it will automatically start the process. But you can also say it needs to start 5 days prior to the start date, and we already start with the lifecycle event. So that's all defined within the lifecycle event, and it's not defined within the journey.
Okay. And then the journey is linked to the life cycle event related to
Correct.
it, right? And so then that triggers the journey to then show up for the user on their, employee center portal or something like that.
Yeah, so the employee journey or the journey is basically an engagement layer on Employee Center where people can fill in the data and the information that is needed. And then afterwards, it will trigger a lifecycle event where the entire process is built. And of course, we need some reporting or analytics on it, which come off also out of the box on the ServiceNow platform, where you can filter based on your locations, departments, the start date, journey types, etc. Employee start date as well here. And then you can just have an overview of all the different journeys that are ongoing within the company. So you saw on the employee center that I can see it specifically as a manager for my employees. But this is as well, for example, for an HR admin to see how many lifecycle events do we have ongoing or how many journeys do we have within the entire company. So there's a lot of different reporting and dashboards that already comes out of the box with it, and you can easily use.
This
That's
piece here, I just definitely want to hit home again is that um, a lot of times the reporting part of an implementation is usually put on the back burner for some weird reason that almost always happens. But ServiceNow specifically tries to give you the tools and the power to say, hey, based on implementations in the past, based on experiences from our customers in the past, these are some of the critical metrics that they want to measure to see if they're successful or not. What does success look like to them? And so having the journey overview dashboard already set up for you to kind of look at things and monitor is a big win. So it's not something you have to actually create yourself. It's already there out of the platform.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's really something a lot of a lot of companies, at least in my experience, sometimes forget to really use the strength of the platform and use the out of the box functionalities that are already there. People really need to look into what is actually already available to you before you start building it yourself. But you might be duplicating things that are already there. It just saves you a lot of time if you just look into if things are already come out of the box, and a lot of things come out of the box with the plugins.
So I'll go
All
ahead
right.
and launch poll 2 here.
Yes. So if you want to implement lifecycle events, which of the below is a best practice? Yes. All right. So at least my message came was pretty clear. So yes, it's C, to create multiple activity sets per stage of the process. You saw it as well during the demo. You really have the different stages of your process defined, and within those stages or activity sets, you can define the specific activities that are needed within that stage, and then which department or employee is responsible for that part within this within the activity. All right, some lessons learned, because prior to KLM, I also worked at some various partner organizations where I did a lot of HR implementations, and I saw some things that are really that they came back in every implementation. First is that it's more than ServiceNow. So although ServiceNow offers a lot of great things, like I just showed you, when implementing journeys and you want to set up connections with other platforms, like your HR core application, like an SAP SuccessFactors or a Workday or whatever HR core platform you're using, you need to take into account that you need to have that connection, and that can take effort and time as well. So don't think that it's just a boom and there it is. It might not be something that you take into account, and at some point you think, let's go and start using this journey. You might get disappointed. So take that into account. Out of the box, I think a lot of sessions mentioned it. And like I mentioned there, it's something that is being said a lot, but staying out of the box really helps to provide this experience that you want. Use the strengths of the platform itself, use the lifecycle events and the journey accelerator. Don't just copy whatever you had in any previous system or current system that you're using. Although it might work, you might not improve your employee experience, because you're just copying whatever you have today. So really start using those out of the box functionalities and dive into what are the out of the box functionalities that we can use. It's not just HR case management. There's a lot of other things that come with it, and start to learn about it and dive into it. And the third one is also pretty important. There's different audiences. I think a lot of us as IT guys or tech guys, we have a certain slang and those kind of things within IT that other IT people understand. But if you're setting up processes for HR and other departments, take into account that you talk with a different audience, because non-IT people are, well, mostly non-technical. So if you start to use your IT slang, they might just think, what are you doing? What were you talking about? So really try to well, I normally try to say this as explain it to a kid. Sometimes might sound a bit harsh, but try to explain it in a simple way that all your colleagues can understand it, and not just only the IT people can understand it. Because if you don't get the message clear and you don't get the requirements and the process that you want to automate, it's not going to work. So that's pretty handy to know. Some common pitfalls: creating journeys that don't map to business processes. That's actually a thing. They don't align with what HR actually wants. So you really need to collaborate with your departments. Sit down with the business itself, check the processes. Are they up to date? Do they still work? What are their expectations? Set up an MVP version and try it out and see how it works. You don't try to aim for the complete perfect solution in the beginning, because it will never be a perfect solution from the beginning. You need to learn along the way and need to improve it. So at some point, start with it, start building it, and learn along the way and enhance it along the way. But before you do that, really talk with your business what they want, because if they don't got your back, then it's not going to work. They are also your representatives towards the end users to promote it. Like, hey, do you already know? You can now request it via our employee center, and there's a journey for it. It's so much easier. If people do that, a lot of people will start using it, and the more people use it, the better it will become based on the feedback that you get.
Yeah, and so that
And
high level here, just to hit home again, is that when you do implementations, usually it's, you do it yourself, you have a partner helping you implement it, and so it's kind of IT focused, and then it's ServiceNow, so then people think it's IT on that side, and so you have IT teams talking to IT teams to get it implemented and set up. But with HR and a lot of these other tools like CSM and such, you really need to have the subject matter experts from HR, the business process owners, involved in those discussions. I can not tell you the amount of times I've seen implementations happen where the other team, you don't even have the actual HR people involved, and then you go live with it or you start to do testing, and then the HR people see it for the first time, and then they start going nuts because no one even talked to them about it. So,
exactly. Yeah. Yeah, it's a pretty common thing. All the other things, you can of course watch it in the recording, and I think as well, Ellen, you mentioned there will be a handout of the presentation, because I won't go through all of them. It will take too much time.
yep, yep.
Um, and there are some regularly forgotten journeys as well. We talked about the most common ones, but what about if you return from leave, parental leave, for example? We just saw how you request it, but what happens if you come back from it? Are there things that need to happen? We disabled my IT accounts, for example, but somebody needs to enable them again if I return. Otherwise, it won't be a success. Geographic relocations, that's something that happens nowadays quite a lot, and it can be quite different. The regulations and the rules and the things that need to happen based on where in the world are you located, but also there might be things that you need to take care of if you do a move. If people move from, I don't know, Germany to the Netherlands, you need to go and register yourself and need to get documentation and all that kind of things. So that can also be part of your process. To the employee, submit your documentation if you have it, so that within the employee document management part, you save them, store them, and know that they are there. And there's a lot of other different things, as you can see here on this slide. Feel free to have a look on them later. Some basic tips. So start with a use case. So really have a valid reason why you're going to start with lifecycle events and employee journeys, not because you just want it because it's cool. You really need to have a use case, an onboarding, parental leave, to understand who the journey is for, when to trigger it, but also what and how it matters to that specific persona. Use conditions strategically. You just sent, for example, a employee start date, but it can also be based on department, location, employee type. So within the lifecycle event that I just showed you, those activities can be different based on countries. So let's say if I need to upload some documentation or a visa, which might be applicable if, in my case, if somebody comes to work for KLM from outside of the EU. But if you're from within the EU, that might not be necessary. So you can actually put some criteria in those activities or on the activities sets or stages itself, that it's only triggered if some of the conditions apply. So do that strategically to make sure that people don't get tasks that are not actually for them, that they don't need to do that. And it also avoids in duplicating journeys. If you have an onboarding journey for internals and externals, don't create two different kind of life cycle events. You can just have one and then put conditions in the life cycle event if it triggers for an internal or for an external. Test with dummy profiles. Most of the time you don't have actual HR user data in your development instance or a test instance. So use it with dummy profiles. You can of course tweak them and see if it works, if the triggers run, and if the conditions are applied. And use catalog items. If you already have catalog items or forms that are available on Employee Center and you want to reuse those in your process, you can do so. You can actually make one of the tasks inside these stages to submit a catalog item. And don't replicate or duplicate things if it's already there. So really use what you already have. So it's similar to, some people might know the order guide thing, where you can combine different items into one. It can do the same with a lifecycle event. Like I mentioned, you can add a flow to it, but you can also add an existing catalog item into it and say to the employee, hey, please submit this catalog item. And we have the information that we need. There's no need to recreate that form. Then some advanced tips. Use the platform analytics. I just showed you an example. Analytics are really important, especially if you incorporate all the surveys in between. You need to measure them, measure the feedback, and take action on it. And the best way to do that is using the analytics feature. Really combine all that information into a report, and then you can maybe present it towards your management, say, hey, this is the feedback that we got in our process, and take action on it based on the discussions that you have. Integrate communications. You can, of course, integrate ServiceNow and use an API or a spoke to connect with Microsoft Teams, Slack, or email. Automate. Try to see what is possible. Also, the mobile app, of course, has the possibilities. So if you have the mobile app and you're using the pre-boarding stage, for example, ServiceNow offers a pre-hire role that you can incorporate within the process, that actually people get a limited access towards Employee Center or your ServiceNow instance, where they can already fulfill tasks even before they start. So really look into the possibilities where you can make it easier for everybody. Gamify the journey. You can, of course, give some compliments to people or make a game out of it, similar to what ServiceNow does with their learning. If you are doing a training, you get a badge or you get a certification or you get something fun. Try to incorporate that within your process to also make it fun for everybody. It's not just simple business processes, but try to make it funny. But not too funny, of course. Uh, eh, and the last thing, of course, which is a hot topic nowadays, try to introduce AI, and don't be afraid to use it. AI can really help with this. If they have a question, if there is something stuck within the process, AI can help and try to figure it out if they struggle with some things. So try to see what are the possibilities with AI on the ServiceNow platform to incorporate that within your employee journeys. So who do you need to start with this? Of course, your platform and process owners. You need somebody who is accountable for the platform, but also somebody who is aware of the processes and can give you the latest version of those processes to make sure that you actually build the processes on the latest version and not build something that is already outdated. That would be a waste of time. Your business analyst, of course, you need to talk with the business, gather the requirements, so you need them to support you with trying to figure the business requirements into technical requirements. And then, of course, have your technical resources, the developers, your admins, and your architects to actually start building your life cycle. So once you connect with your leadership, you want to discuss the values, but also the investment that is needed. Maybe they have a different perspective on it, but it needs to be clear as well what the cost might be for building all of this on the platform. Define the employee experience that you want to create, but also talk with your businesses on what they want if you're going to update and recreate the processes and automate it. What are their expectations? Create a governance. A lot of companies actually don't have a governance, so it's something you really need to have before you start building on this. And of course, identify the technical implications. So, are there any technical restrictions you might have? Maybe there are some spokes available for your HR core system that you can just easily connect it onto the ServiceNow platform. It might be that there isn't. And then you need to create a custom API, for example, or an integration to get that data onto the ServiceNow platform, which can be a technical implication. So really identify the things there. Which systems do you need? And do you want to integrate onto the ServiceNow platform? Some key takeaways, like I mentioned, stay out of the box. Use the strengths of the platform. There are really a lot of things that come with the ServiceNow platform. So really start using that before you start building your own things. Like I mentioned, start simple. You don't have you don't have to have a fully complete and ideal scenario. Start simple and optimize along the way. That's really the best way forward, and that's also how you learn from it. The experience people have when they actually start using it, it actually works better in the long term than try to start with an ideal scenario. And like I mentioned, talk with your departments and businesses. It's really something that you need to do. Like Alan mentioned, if there's an HR process that is going to be automated, talk with somebody of HR and not just think that HR wants this. Talk with them and know what they actually want and how it works. Some important resources. So if you're interested in learning more about the employee journeys, of course, you can go to the ServiceNow learning page. There is a Lifecycle event fundamentals course that you can follow to see how it's set up and dive more into the things than what I just showed you. Of course, you have the Now Create page, the ServiceNow community, which Ellen, of course, talked about, and of course, the ServiceNow documentation site. Really look into the HR part, the lifecycle documentation, and the journeys. Dive into the information on what is actually available to you before start using it to make sure that you have all the ins and outs and know what is there. All right. Any questions, Ellen?
Yeah, so Laszlo's been doing a great job helping answer some of them. So I'll kind of go over one that's still outstanding here just to talk about it. John asks, can you elaborate on how we can bring existing tasks from across the platform into an employee journey? So just to kind of recap again, from the life cycle event, you have those activity sets. So activities sets inside can consist of catalog items and those other tasks that exist within an enterprise. So that's how, in a literal sense, you can kind of bring them in. But maybe John might have been asking how to find tasks within an organization to maybe bring in outside of that.
Yeah, and that's something that really comes up if you talk with your businesses. So if you have a catalog item or a flow that you're currently already using that is creating an X amount of tasks for a certain process that you incorporate within your lifecycle event, that will of course stay. But you might be unaware of all the tasks that are being triggered from a flow or a catalog item that is already there. So if you talk with your business and say, oh, but we do then this and this happens, and if this triggers, then also we need to do that. And it's currently all manual. We need to perform some task. You can also see with them what of that can we automate if we incorporate it within a lifecycle event. But if you have a flow that triggers or creates task from within the flow, please just add the flow into the lifecycle event and not just duplicate the task into the lifecycle event because you already have it and it's automated. So incorporate it and not duplicate it.
That's great information, Wessel. And so, again, folks, we will have the deck as well as all questions and answers, even if it's already been answered on the live Zoom. We will have all questions and all answers in the event within the brand new Ask the Experts page. So, Wessel, if you go one more forward there, we have a QR code that if you have your phone, you can scan that. It'll take you right to the Ask the Experts page. We also have it right here in the chat and on the YouTube video. We'll have it in the description down below. So this is a brand new page that stood up where the discussion doesn't stop here. Continue to join in. If you have a question in a week from now, let us know. Wessel, the rest of the team will be kind of looking over those questions, answering. If we don't know the answer, we'll find somebody from our ServiceNow HR team to ask. So don't give us an easy one. Go dig in and ask some hard ones. We're here for it. But again, thank you so much, Wessel, for presenting today. Outstanding job. Really loved the both the demo of it and the actual presentation. We actually knocked out pretty much all the questions that were asked. So thank you again for joining us. And until next time, take care. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you very much.